Coming up on the Paper Talk today, we'll be looking at potential incomings at Manchester United. We've been linked with a couple of players for Wolves, including one who's called the Pitbull. Sounds promising. Let's get into it. Jay here for Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm outside Old Trafford and yeah, the weather's, it's all right, a little bit windy. So, yeah, I'm not crying. It's just a little bit windy. Loads of stories to get into, so we will do. Make sure, though, before we get into all that, you are hitting like, share, and subscribe. Now, it feels like we're heading towards the sort of transfer window. Well, we are heading towards the transfer window because there's more and more transfer stories coming out. There's a couple this morning. There's one in the Metro saying that United have been linked again with Gleison Bremer. This is the lad from Juve, the Brazilian. I think he's got 3 Brazilian caps. Centre-back. We had this story on Paddock Live the other day. Now, it appears, according to the Metro, that he's one of Dan Ashworth's targets. He was on Dan Ashworth's list, and that he could end up at Manchester United like Dan Ashworth. Now, that might cause a, ruffle a few feathers over at Newcastle, because at the minute, Dan Ashworth is still on gardening leave. There's a bit of back and forth in there with Newcastle. They wanted 20 million quid compensation to bring Dan Ashworth to Old Trafford. Manchester United and INEOS said that ain't going to happen. Looks like there could be a compromise. Then there was a bit more pushback saying, well, we don't want Dan Ashworth to start at Manchester United until the end of the transfer window, which according to latest reports, INEOS are saying, well, that's nonsense. We don't want that. We want him to start sooner than that. Then the other twist in the tail was, okay, maybe then Dan Ashworth doesn't sort of help facilitate any moves between players from Newcastle and Manchester United, which kind of makes sense to me and could work. However, I wouldn't be surprised if the targets that Dan Ashworth has when he arrives are the ones he's already had. I don't think he's going to have a brand new list of targets. So if he is after Gleison Bremer, then he's going to bring those targets like Bremer to Manchester United, or try and bring them to Manchester United. So one to keep an eye on. We were speaking about this the other day. I don't know a lot about him. He looks like a decent defender. I think he's had a lot of praise in Syria. Obviously, he's not a kid. I think he's 27. Few Brazil caps. I don't think that means a lot nowadays. It used to be when you played Brazil, you were amazing. Nowadays, it's a bit like, okay, yeah, Brazil aren't exactly vintage Brazil side, but he's obviously a decent player. So, one to keep an eye on. The Metro going big on that, though, saying that he's a Dan Ashworth target and then he could end up at Manchester United. Get involved in the comments in the chat. Let me know if you know anything about this kid and what you think about that potential move. Talking of Brazilians potentially coming to Manchester United Football Club, João Gomes, the lad at Wolves, is another one who's been linked with a move to Manchester United. Quite a few papers are running this one. I think I've seen it in the Mirror, seen it in the Manchester Evening News as well, saying that he has become a target. He's a midfielder that could slot in alongside Mainoo. He could be that sort of Casemiro type player who comes into the midfield and plays alongside Mainoo and presumably Bruno Fernandes. A bit more sort of a defensive deep line midfielder than someone like Bruno, and even Mainoo. I think Mainoo may end up becoming a little bit more box to box as time pushes on. He's always getting there anyway, isn't he? I think he's been used quite sort of, not as a defensive midfielder, but he has been deep quite a lot of times for Manchester United. But we're seeing it more and more recently. We saw obviously the Wolves game where he was getting forward and got his goal. We saw it against Liverpool here at the FA Cup game where he was sort of dancing through the midfield. So someone like Gomes coming in would make sense. Now, I don't know a lot about Gomes. I've seen him a few times for Wolves, and he looks like a very talented, tidy player. Now, he's nicknamed the Pitbull because he obviously likes to get stuck in, not because he's an American singer. Or is Pitbull American? He is, isn't it? I think so. I saw him once. Yeah, I saw him in concert, fronting for Britney Spears. That's how cutting edge I am. I went to see Britney Spears. Listen, it was a Valentine's present for me. Missus, don't judge me. Anyway, he's a bit more of a tough tackling midfielder, but he did get a couple of goals against, I think it was Spurs not so long ago. Helped Wolves win 2-1 against Spurs, but he isn't an attacking midfielder. Don't let that fool you, thinking he's going to bang in loads of goals. He isn't. He's a tough tackling midfielder. Could fit in here at Manchester United, and now might be the time to get him. His stock is on the rise. I think they paid about 15 million quid for him not that long ago, but you're going to have to pay a lot more to get him here. But hopefully you can get him for a reasonable price, because we know that when Manchester United come calling for players, all of a sudden a 40, 50, 60 million pound player becomes a 80, 90 million pound one. And I think that's something INEOS are looking to avoid. One to keep an eye on though, very talented, got in Premier League experience, doing well for Wolves, even bagged a couple of goals. Let's see what happens. We might even see him playing against England, I believe, for Brazil this weekend. So if we do, you'll be able to do a little bit of a scouting report yourselves on the lad Gomes. Also, on the Wolves front, there's also reports that we could be in for Pedro Neto. I think the Manchester Evening News have hinted that, or not hinted, they've said via, again, the Mirror, I think there's a lot of, stories doing the rounds in both those papers, that Manchester United are keeping tabs on Pedro Neto. He's having a decent season, Pedro Neto. I think he's got about 3 goals and 11 assists in about 24 games, something like that. So he's doing well, a productive player, plays on that right-hand side predominantly. He is more of a creator than just a goal scorer. He likes likes to get himself, about and also create goals for his teammates rather than just trying to score them all himself. Would fit into the team. You could see Rasmus Højlund enjoying playing alongside someone who's trying to whip balls in and create stuff for our striker. But it feels a little bit like, yeah, United are looking at him. United are interested in him. United are keeping tabs. United are monitoring. Nothing concrete there to make me think we're going to go in for Pedro Neto. Pedro Neto, his star has been on the rise now for a few years. I think he's been in the Premier League for a few years now. He's still only a youngster. So I expect him to cost a lot more than João Gomes. One to keep an eye on. Are Wolves going to sell us two of their players? Probably not. And I feel like the two, Gomes is the more likely option. But you never know. Who knows what the future holds? Maybe you could see both, or even Pedro Neto rather than Gomes coming to Manchester United. Let me know in the comments and the chat what you think about those potential moves. There's a story in the Evening News sort of listing all the areas that we're looking at and potential players, potential targets, and the usual names keep coming up. Jeremy Frimpong is one that you keep hearing. Jared Branthwaite is another one. We keep hearing about Jared Branthwaite as a centre-back option, one that is highly regarded. Also from Everton as well. Onana's another one that pops up too. But the trouble is when you've got players like Onana and Branthwaite and Gomes and Neto, I don't see these teams selling you two players. It's very rare that happens. It can, but it's highly unlikely. So I think you prioritise. And with Everton, I think the priority would be Jared Branthwaite rather than Onana. Let me know what you think about that. Get involved in the chat in the comments. Harry Maguire has been chatting as well, and he's been talking about everyone's favourite subject, including me, Kobbie Mainoo, and he's compared him to Jude Bellingham in terms of his maturity and the way he's sort of, an older head on young shoulders, if you will. 18 years old. He's showing that. We've seen the performances from Manchester United. Don't expect him to be phased if he does get a chance for Gareth Southgate with England. I mean, it's sort of the trajectory he's on. He's only played, about, 16 games or whatever it is for Manchester United, but I feel he's very much ready to step up for England, and so does Harry Maguire. Also, Harry Maguire, there's an interview doing the rounds. I think this is what he's been saying as well with England, talking about the game against Liverpool, because I can never tire of speaking about that epic 4-3 win over the Scousers in the FA Cup quarter-final here to stop them doing the quadruple and knock them out of the FA Cup in Jurgen Klopp's last season. Last season in England anyway. Yeah, he was saying, Harry Maguire, how basically Erik ten Hag went for it. He kind of told the players, let's be more aggressive, let's go man-to-man. And at one point, Harry Maguire points out the fact that him and Diogo Dalot were the only defenders on the pitch for Manchester United, and that Manchester United just went man-for-man and went for it. And he thought that maybe Erik ten Hag might try and tighten up, but he didn't. He just kept attacking. Love that. It worked. That's what you want to see from a Manchester United manager. That's what you want to see from a Manchester United team, and that's why I want to see Erik ten Hag being given more time as Manchester United manager. We have been linked with Gareth Southgate. Apparently, Sir Jim Ratcliffe is a bit of a fan. However, there's a story by Jamie Jackson in The Guardian saying that regardless of what happens in the summer, Erik ten Hag's future, for now, is secure. Doesn't expect anything drastic to happen. So even if United do fall off a bit of a cliff this season, we're not going to bite the bullet or pull the trigger or however many, sayings you want to use. I'm bringing a caretaker. Erik ten Hag, which you'd expect, will get until at least the end of the season, and then INEOS can take stock. But if it was up to me, I would give Erik ten Hag another season at least. Let him work under this new regime. Give him a chance under the new structure. Let him get the likes of Lisandro Martinez, Mason Mount back into this team. We want to see how he can operate. Luke Shaw as well, with a fully strength squad, with a hierarchy that knows what they're doing, with some transfers that could suit him. Maybe having a bit more of a sort of a grown-up structure here at the club could help Erik ten Hag, could help him develop his team, could help us move forward, and could help us challenge for the very, very top honours. I much prefer Erik ten Hag to Gareth Southgate if it became a choice between the two. Get involved in the chat in the comments and let me know what you think. Going to wrap it up there. I'm going to be back later on with The Brew, so make sure you are hitting like, share and subscribe. I'm Jay Motty. This has been the Paper Talk outside a pretty mild Old Trafford. Thanks for watching.